As the first openly LGBTQ plus person elected to the Board of Supervisors and the first woman elected to District 5 ever, she brings a fresh perspective and a deep commitment to building a more resilient, inclusive, and thriving community. We'll hear about her vision, her goals for the district, and what drives her passion for public service when we return with Supervisor Monica Martinez. Stay with us. Welcome back. Joining us now, Supervisor Monica Martinez. Welcome.
Thank you.
How
Hi.
are you doing?
I'm doing great. It's great to see you.
Oh, it must be such an exciting time for you.
It really is. It's a true privilege and honor to be able to serve.
Oh, well, we're happy to have you serving, and but we're not surprised. It seems like you have had a long career dedicated to public service. What got you started down that road?
You know, I've been a public servant my entire life. It started as a young person. I grew up in Bakersfield. My dad was a fire captain for Kern County Fire Department. My mom was an elementary school teacher. And I was really brought up with the values of serving my community. And so I've followed a career path that really helped me to deliver public services to those most in need.
Now, you mentioned your parents are in public service. So what did they model for you that caused you to follow in their footsteps?
You know, I really believe in the power of community, and that, you know, we can wait for somebody else to come save us or help us, or we can work together and organize and collaborate to help each other. And that's something that I saw my parents do when I was a young person, and living in the San Lorenzo Valley and, you know, being in the district, in District 5, it's also a value that's really important to that community, that we work together and help each other when the going gets tough.
Yeah, that's a place where you really do rely on your neighbors in times of weather.
Yeah, no kidding.
That's usually the thing.
Yeah.
So you've broken barriers as the first woman, the first LGBTQ person. What do you hope people gain from your example? Are you hoping that people will respond to these ideas, and now what will happen?
Yeah. I mean, I'll start off by sharing that I never thought I would run for public office. You know, I was a public servant, and I knew that I could roll up my sleeves and, you know, advocate and serve and change systems. But the idea of being elected, you know, being up there, wasn't really something that I thought was possible. And part of that's coming from my background, right? When you're, you know, a queer Latinx woman from Bakersfield, you don't see a lot of people who look like you in public office. And so, you know, I really threw my career into service from other seats through nonprofit leadership and things like that. But as I've continued to be in, you know, whether it's community-based organizations or serving in various volunteer roles, I've seen the importance of having diverse voices at the table. And I've seen where voices are left out, and how sometimes policy decisions that, you know, impact everybody or impact, you know, some communities even more, are made without the right voices there. And so my hope as somebody who, you know, I feel really fortunate to be breaking some barriers in the seat, is that I'll be able to represent a different voice. Mm-hmm. I'll be able to represent my community, and I will be able to inspire other people to step forward and run for elected office as well.
Mm-hmm. I used to have a friend who would say, if you can't see it, you can't be it.
I absolutely believe that. Yeah.
Yeah, well, it's a great value add.
Thank you.
To have that. So as you begin your term, what are the top, just off the top of your head, the top 3 things that you want to attack right away for the 5th District?
Yeah, I'll start with what may be the obvious when you represent District 5 in Santa Cruz County, which is disaster recovery, prevention, preparedness, right? We have been hit so hard in the 5th District and across the county with disasters. I think we've had 7 or 8 federally declared disasters in the last 7 years or something like that. And that's the new normal. And so as a supervisor representing such a vulnerable district, I feel like it's my job to support those who've been impacted by disasters, the CZU fires or the winter storms, support them by streamlining the permitting processes and providing them with the resources they need to rebuild, and also preparing the rest of the community for the next disaster, because it's not a matter of if, it's when. And there's a lot we can do to prepare. There's some new both state dollars that were passed at the last election and also local dollars with our local Measure Q that will also help with those efforts. So making sure that those dollars are put in the right places to support the district. So that's one priority. Want me to keep going?
Yeah.
All right.
Yep.
The next priority is really related to the way that decisions are made and what factors go into those decisions. So I've been in public health and public service throughout my whole career. And I have seen how policy decisions impact the health of our community and how decisions sometimes, leave people behind and contribute to disparities. And, as a framework, often we make public policy decisions with a variety of factors, but the economic impacts, obviously that's important. Environmental impacts, right? There's a whole CEQA process that informs some public policy and things like that. But we don't often center health in those decisions as well. And so I'm bringing forward an effort to put health and move it from an implicit topic to an explicit topic by bringing forward an initiative called Health in All Policies. It's a framework that's been adopted through many jurisdictions, over the last many years. Even the city of Santa Cruz has a Health in All Policies approach, but it'll be a framework that the county can use when public policy decisions come up, whether it's roads, infrastructure, economic development, of course, health and things like that, to help guide decisions. So that's the third area that I hope to work on.
Before you move on from that
Or
one.
second area.
The second area.
Yeah, second
That's
area.
okay. We'll get to the third one for sure.
Yeah.
I think that's really interesting, including health in all things. And I'm wondering if you could cite an example so we could kind of see what that would mean. I mean, we realize now they're always considering the environmental impact, and that has to do with health, and safety, and that has to do with health. But what are you thinking we will gain specifically from this?
Yeah. So one example came up just in my first or second meeting as a supervisor. Our county has been a leader in the cannabis legalization and cannabis ordinances. And right now we are considering something like a cannabis consumption lounge, which is an opportunity to partner with the distributors to have a place where people can consume cannabis. That item came before the board with economic information, permitting information, but no information about the health outcomes, right? Whether it's secondhand smoke, how it might appeal to young people, the impact of consumption on youth. And, I'm not somebody who's gonna seek to criminalize cannabis, obviously, but I would love to be able to have that information as a part of the dialogue. So as a collective, the 5 supervisors can help to inform where public policy goes based on all of the variables. Another example would be broadband expansion. We know that our community relies on broadband for economic development, in the schools, for so many reasons. And we have broadband deserts in our county. And so as our county is partnering with, whether it's AT&T or Comcast or other different sources to help expand our broadband, we should be looking at where there are disparities in our community and where we should be expanding our broadband reach to meet those disparities. Because we know that something like a child's access to broadband will help them in school. It'll help them to possibly, move on to college, expand their economic prosperity and opportunity, and all of those things contribute to overall, health outcomes and quality of life. And so, as these sort of expansion projects or new public policies come before the board, the health outcome, it's not going to determine what we do, but it will inform the picture better, and it'll allow us to make a more comprehensive decision about where we put our resources.
And might it allow you to add a thing or take a thing away or like amplify the project in a little bit of a health way?
Absolutely. I'm somebody that believes that your health isn't about, what happens when you show up at the doctor's office or in the emergency room, right? Your true health is about all of the factors outside of your primary care provider that impact your overall health outcomes. So that could be the environments around you, your sense of safety, your housing status, your access to food or healthy food. All of those things contribute to health. And so by applying a health lens to the public policy that we make, it'll allow us to make decisions about things like infrastructure and expansion in a way that helps improve the health of our overall population.
Well done.
Thanks. I hope so.
No, that's a great explanation. Well, shall we go back to, let's see, I guess we need to go on to priority 3.
Oh yes, priority 3. Well, I didn't run with this as a priority 3, but unfortunately, just given what's happening at our in our nation at the federal level, priority 3 is to protect our community and our county from the threat of the federal administration. Over half of our county budget comes from federal or state sources, and we have already received threatening letters that are asking how we are complying with the federal administration's executive orders around things like DEI or immigrant rights. And as a county, I'm incredibly proud of the values that we have to protect those who are most vulnerable. But now, since those values are under threat, I believe that first line of defense comes at the county level and comes locally. And so it's going to be my job and my colleagues on the board to protect the county from those, the real, threats and risks to our funding.
Mm-hmm. That sounds hard. Have you thought about how you might do that?
We're really fortunate that we have partners both at our federal legislative leaders, state leaders as well, and the courts that have so far been siding with our efforts to protect the safety net. And so we are keeping a really close eye on those efforts to see what is going to end up hitting our local counties. But at the same time, we're mobilizing on how to educate our community about their rights and about safety in our communities. And we're also putting our money where our mouth is. Just last board meeting, the county set aside $200,000 to protect the immigrant community through legal aid and the LGBTQ plus community through essential services, recognizing that those are communities that are under threat. And I'm really proud of the county because that $200,000, it came from our contingency funds. Like this is like the rainy day fund that we set aside in case it does rain and a bridge gets wiped out. And we are seeing this as that level of an emergency and dedicating funds to protect those who are most vulnerable.
Yes. Okay, good to know. let's go back to priority one. The storms and all the there are so many people who are just not back in their homes from past storms. So you had talked about doing something with the regulations to, I don't know, streamline them or speed them up or making it more possible. I mean, some people have said that the permit process is too confusing and they can't even get through that. And some have walked away from their homes. What's your idea there? How do you think you can help?
Yeah. I mean, first I want to just agree that it's been such a long and difficult process for people who lost their homes. We have hundreds of people who haven't been able to rebuild since the CZU fire back in 2020. And so I feel for those folks, and I feel like it's my job to help advocate for them, to help them get back home where possible. The county, I think, has learned some hard lessons and is going through a process to improve the permitting timelines and processes. We have a board item that's coming up in this month, in March, that will talk to us about our gaps and opportunities for improvement within the planning department. And I'm going to use that as an opportunity to advocate for greater support for those who lost their homes in the CZU fire or in the winter storms. One of the things that the county is trying is a unified permit process, right? So you don't have to go from this department to this department to this department to get a permit. However, we need to do more to streamline that. I think that we are now seeing that the scale of the disasters in Southern California and Los Angeles related to their recent fire, and we're seeing the state step forward with some pretty sweeping clearances for the rebuild process. And as a smaller county, I think it's our job to learn from what they're doing and hopefully bring forward those type of solutions for our community as well. So as a new supervisor, of course I have a lot to learn. I'm coming in with a lot of questions, but I've heard a lot of feedback during the time, both as a resident in the valley and as a candidate in the valley. So I'm really eager to get this moving.
Yeah, that's just the human part of it. There's real people uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's talk about the infrastructure of the valley. There are a number of things up there that are always a problem. Roads, weather just attacks everything. There's cell service, all kinds of things. What do you think is the most important thing, and how will you tackle that?
Wow. You never
if
ask
there's one.
Never ask somebody in elected seat what the one priority is. What I'll say is I can tell you all of these priorities are connected to climate change. We have seen such a difference in the type of weather that we are getting, whether it's drought that's drying out our beautiful redwood forest and contributing to the fire danger, or these atmospheric rivers. I don't know, I don't feel like 5 years ago I knew what an atmospheric river is, and now it feels like we have one every other week. And so I think that the idea of community resiliency to the changing climate is really core. And then under resiliency, there are so many things we need to do to prepare. Roads is a huge one. We still have major roads in our district that are one way in, one way out. There's no emergency egress in the case of a wildfire. And so I am really already pushing on the county to try to expedite any effort to create alternative exits for evacuation where possible, and then to educate our public about them. As we talk about roads, we also have, major county managed roads that haven't been paved in decades. And so really helping the county to prioritize our road maintenance needs. We have, for the last several years, dedicated so much of our road funding to emergency repairs that we've started to defer maintenance. And we know that deferred maintenance just becomes another emergency repair. So this budget cycle, I'll be asking for additional funds to go to just the ongoing and routine maintenance of our county roads, so that way we can prevent future disasters. And then, yeah, I'd say we have an incredibly strong community that works together when disaster strikes. However, I believe there's more the county can do to shore up the infrastructure of our disaster response in partnership with our local fire districts, with our local emergency response teams, and to make sure that we are prepared for when that disaster happens.
Yeah, the valley does seem to get more than its fair share. I mean, my gosh, you got a tornado.
I know, no
Just
kidding.
like, what the heck?
Yeah, I agree.
So speaking of weird weather, as climate resilience is kind of a thing we all have to be aware of now and kind of plan for the future, what sorts of things do you think you could do? I mean, there's always something happening right now to take care of it, but what could happen that we would do, like we would build for the future so we weren't really so devastated when these things come?
Yeah. Well, what I'll say is thanks to the voters in the last election, Measure Q passed, and that is truly a climate resiliency tax. And through those funds, we're going to be able to partner with, whether it's the Fire Safe Council or our local Firewise communities, plus folks who are focusing on water quality and water conservation, and so many other local efforts to collaborate on our climate resiliency plans and efforts. We know we have a lot to do. And so I'm eager to work with the county to ensure that those dollars have a direct impact on the variety of efforts that need to happen. A big one in my district is vegetation management, right? We have a lot of dry fuels still sitting in very vulnerable places. And so some of these dollars can be used to help with vegetation management to reduce the risk of fire. At the same time, other districts, they struggle with, the shorelines and our bluffs and how vulnerable they are. And so, each of us have our own sort of vulnerabilities to climate, but I think what we share is our climate goals and our efforts to reduce our reliance on greenhouse gases, and I think together we can roll out a plan both in our county, but then also across the region, our whole Monterey Bay region, to support these goals.
So one of the things that you have done a very creative job of is public-private partnerships. Do you think that you could employ that in this instance? Absolutely.
It's going to take everybody to support this. It's not just a county mandate, but we're going to have to work with whether it's our local land trusts or our local community-based organizations to support this work. In my previous job at Encompass Community Services, I had the opportunity to implement or to bring down state and federal funds into this community to implement shared goals. In many cases, whether it was behavioral health expansion projects or expanding early childhood education. And what I have seen is that we've got some really great partners locally who are skilled and ready to implement our shared goals using public dollars. And as a supervisor, my job will be to connect those dots and to make sure that our dollars go as far as they can in partnership with our many amazing community partners.
Well, now that we've kind of seen your vision, if you think ahead to when your first term ends, what do you hope you will have accomplished?
That's such a great question. Well, we will have survived the federal administration, first of all, in one piece. And so that's, it's something very front of mind right now because of the risks that exist. But beyond that, I hope that I can, walk through town in the San Lorenzo Valley and know that our residents feel heard. They feel like they have a voice at the table, that when they have challenges that involve whether it's our county jurisdiction or other jurisdictions, they know where to go, and that they have representation that's accessible and ready to serve them. And that alone, I think, will feel good and will be a shift in kind of what the experience is to date. As it relates to our fire victims, my hope is that, after a term, every person, they know where they stand, they know what the county's doing to support them, that they see a path towards rebuilding if they choose to rebuild, or they've been provided support and alternatives if they choose that rebuilding isn't the thing. Everybody gets to make a choice, and our job is to make sure those choices are accessible, in any way that we can.
Well, in our last couple minutes, now that you've been to a meeting, you've brought forward an initiative, what would you tell other women and LGBTQ plus people about serving their country, serving their county?
Yeah. I mean, like I started with, it's an incredible privilege to be in a position like this. I'm still pinching myself when I get there. I'm still wondering, like, wow, who let me in here? Because it's an incredible honor. And what I would say to other folks is that, your voice matters and your voice is needed at the table. And so, every moment, humans are making decisions that impact everybody else. So why not yours? We need you. And so what I would say is, be bold, be courageous, step out there. Let me know how I can help, because I love supporting diverse leaders in, running for office or making sure their voice is heard. And please, we need you.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Supervisor Monica Martinez, for joining us here today. And thank you at home as well. For CTV, I'm Becca Reed saying thank you and good night.